Alright guys, thought I'd give you a bit of good news for the next project. I finally found a manual transmission that I'm planning to use with that engine, the E55 engine. And this was probably the most requested mod for the E55 to go with a manual transmission. But I didn't do it for the longest time because it was going to be a difficult mod because, well, there's a few things that I need to change. I need to make a custom flywheel adapter that will enable me to bolt a flywheel from this transmission onto that engine. And then I also need to make like a custom adapter for bolting the transmission onto that engine because even the bolt pattern for the transmission is different. Talking about this transmission, this is the transmission from the 350Z or the Infinity G35. The reason I chose to go with this transmission was because, first of all, well, they're really easy to find because there's a lot of them around here in Canada. They're fairly cheap. And also, like, these are transmissions that have been tried and tested on the track. Obviously the 350Z, there's a whole bunch of them that people modify and go on the track. There's people that modify 350Zs all the way to 900 horsepower and still use this transmission. There's a lot of clutches out there available for this transmission. So obviously, like, finding parts and finding clutches for this transmission are going to be fairly easy. Another thing I'm planning to do later with this transmission is that I don't want to keep it a full manual. I want to convert it to an automated manual transmission. So rather than me shifting the gears all the time, it would actually be a system where I would actually just press the pedal on the steering wheel and the system would actually shift the gears for me and also do the clutch for me. That's something that I already have tried. I made it for my other self-made car that I made a few years back, and for that system I just used electric motors. So there was an electric motor that would move the gear lever side to side, and there was another electric motor that would move the gear lever forwards and backwards, and there was a circuit controlling all of that and also the clutch. So the circuit could control when to press the clutch and what gears to engage. That car actually had no gear lever at all. It was actually all done electronically, but for this one I do plan to improve the system a little bit. So I'm planning to leave a clutch pedal and also a gear lever in there, so that this decision is up to me whether I want to use the pedal shifters or the gear lever to change the gears. And I also do want to improve the shifting on the transmission because last time what I found out was using electric motors, it was actually a fairly slow way because the electric motors were fairly slow moving the gear from one gear to another gear. This time I plan to use pneumatic, so use air pressure to change the gears. So there's going to be two pneumatic cylinders that are going to move the gear lever. One is going to move it side to side and the other one is going to move it forwards and backwards. And obviously I'll need all the sensors and everything along with it, so it can actually sense what the position is and what gears it's moving it to. And same with the clutch, just use a pneumatic that is going to engage the clutch. So yeah, basically to explain the system, how it's going to shift is, let's say you're in first gear and you press the pedal shifter on the steering wheel to shift it to second gear. It's going to engage the clutch really quickly. It's going to move the gear lever from first to second. It's going to match the revs on the engine and then it's going to release the clutch. So what happens is that you get extremely quick shifts, way faster than you can shift yourself, and also the gear shifting is much smoother because the revs are perfectly matched. It's the same type of system that comes in the Ferrari F430 and some other cars out there. It's single clutch automated manual transmission. It's obviously something I have tried, so obviously making it the second time now I can improve on it and make it a lot better than I made last time. Also, to give you guys an update with the E55, how much of it I have taken apart. So a lot of it is apart. I took the whole dash apart. This was the climate control system, and I really need to sort out the stuff and throw away what I don't need because right now my whole garage is full and I do need to make more space over here. So just to show you some of the parts, that's the SBC module. By the way, SBC, I'm not planning to keep it. It's a good system, but for a car like this, yeah, it's definitely not going to be a good idea implementing SBC, especially because there's a lot to go wrong with it. But some of the things that I am planning to keep from the car, this is the steering column, and I really like this one because this is a fairly light design actually. I was thinking this was going to be pretty heavy with the motors and everything, but it's actually not heavy at all. It's actually pretty light. I think it would weigh somewhere around 5 kilograms, maybe slightly higher than 5 kilograms, I'm not sure, but still. It's actually like it moves the steering wheel both ways, so you can move the steering wheel forwards and backwards and up and down, and it has motors and everything in it. So I'm planning to keep the same thing for that car because it's going to make it really easy to get in and out of the car. This is the pushrod suspension. I have it out of the car finally. It's all chained up right now because the springs are still under tension, so I didn't want it to open up because then it would be a hassle compressing everything back. But yeah, pretty cool to look at everything after such a long time. It's been in the car for 2 years and now finally I took it apart. And it's pretty cool to see that nothing really actually got damaged or anything after like 2 years of track abuse. The only downside of the suspension was I think I made it a bit too strong. The metal I used on it, it was 1/8 inch thick, so it was a bit too strong. I think next suspension I'll make for the next project is probably going to be something of a similar design, but I'll try to use thinner metal on that so it weighs less. But other than that, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way everything worked with this one. This is the rear subframe. This is actually the dash, the material that goes behind the dashboard. It's actually all magnesium. It's pretty light actually. Oh shit, I dropped it. And this is all the climate control stuff that goes behind the dashboard. This is also all plastic, really light. Doesn't weigh much at all. So it's pretty surprising that everything in this car, like they put all that magnesium dashboard, a climate control system that doesn't weigh anything, and all those things, and still the car weighs 1800 kilograms. You really got to question where all that weight comes from. I'm actually planning to weigh all the components of the car, so I have a weighing scale and I was weighing all these components one by one, and I'll probably make a separate video on that, like just taking the car apart part by part and weighing everything and actually seeing why the car actually weighs so much, because all these components in the car were fairly light. The transmission only weighed like 70 kilograms or something. The engine was fairly light for, well, the big engine it is. It was around 240 kilograms with the supercharger and exhaust, which is not too bad actually, because the supercharger alone is 40 kilograms, so without the supercharger I think it would be fairly light. And other components in the car, like the hood was fairly light. It's all aluminum. The trunk lid is all aluminum. The fenders are aluminum. So yeah, it's funny to see why the car weighs so much even though all these components are so light in the car. Also showing you guys what I'm doing to the car right now. So it's a big mess in here right now. There's wires all over the place. That's because I'm trying to take the whole wiring harness out of this car and try to move it to that next project. So the first thing I want to do is I want to try to take all this wiring harness out of the car and try to connect it back together outside of the car and try to start the engine, see if I can start the engine outside of the car, like without having the car. Because if I can do that, that will tell me that I can stick with these electronics and make everything work, which by the way, this is not an easy task. This wiring harness, it's all one wiring harness coming all the way from the engine bay and going all the way to the back of the car, because there's actually some components that go in the trunk, like the batteries in the trunk. There's a few fuse boxes in the trunk. There's a battery controller in the trunk. This is really important. It has to be there for everything to function. So all this wiring harness is like all tied together all the way till the engine bay. So taking it out is a bit of a hassle. This is the whole dash and the interior, some of the interior that came out of the car. And some things that I'm planning to keep are the instrument cluster. I want to try to get this instrument cluster working, because it is going to be a really good addition, because I won't have to connect a different instrument cluster for the speed and the RPM and also the temperature and the fuel level. It's going to be helpful if I can get this thing working. Also, like all the different menus that are in there, if I get this working with the wiring harness, that's going to be a big benefit. If I can get this thing working, I'm also planning to keep this for the signals. The car's not going to have any wipers obviously, but still for the signals it's going to be really helpful, because on the track you do need to signal people by, or even use your flashlight sometimes if it's really dark. The steering wheel, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep, because it is a heavy steering wheel, but then again, most of the weight is because of the airbag, and I can always remove the airbag. Because keeping the steering wheel, one benefit would be that I would be able to use these switches and actually go through all the different functions that were in the car. But I'm not sure how many of those functions will work when the whole car is gone and it's just the ECU and a few of the electronics left. So that's something that I'll still have to figure out. I'll have to like take everything apart. That's why I'm trying to get the whole wiring harness out right now and try to sort out as much of this as I can right now, so I know how many of the features would function properly and how many of the features I'll have to get rid of. So yeah, that is the update for now. I am planning to actually get the whole transmission stuff and the electronic stuff sorted first before I move to the frame and before I get to building the car. Just because there's a few changes that I might have to do that might change the design of the frames. Also, the transmission now, because it's different, I'll need to change the design a little bit for the mounting point of the transmission. I'm not planning to use these rubber mounts, by the way. I'm just planning to solid mount the transmission. Also, the bell housing adapter that's going to be on the transmission, I'm planning to solid mount the adapter itself to the chassis, and also the engine is going to be solid mounted. The same way it is on most race cars actually. Most Formula 1 cars or Le Mans prototypes, they're all going to have solid mounted engines and transmissions, just because that construction helps them save a lot of weight, and it also helps add more rigidity to the chassis, because the engine and the transmission are not just dead weights, then they're also contributing to the strength of the chassis. So that's the benefit of going with solid mounts over rubber mounts. But yeah, that is the update for now. The next videos you're going to be seeing is probably me trying to start this engine outside of the car using all the electronics and seeing how much I can actually get working with all the electronics and how much custom work I'll need to do with the electronics. And at the same time, I'm also going to be working with the transmission, trying to make the custom bell housing adapter and also the custom flywheel adapter. It's going to delay the project by a little bit because obviously I have to complete these changes first before I start making the frame now. But all in all, I think it's good to get sorted with all these things first before actually making the frame, because all this stuff will actually help me save a lot more time later, because wiring up the automatic transmission and like having to worry about limp mode and all those things, that would have been a much more difficult challenge. Now with the manual transmission, the electronics are going to be way simpler. Also, let me know what type of videos you guys want to see for this new project, whether you want to see one long video at the end of the month covering all the changes, or whether you want like short videos at the end of every week or something, just taking you guys along what I'm doing. So yeah, let me know about that. That's everything for now, and thanks for watching.